Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's GeneralTarheel bringing you the APA Showdown Season now, Week 2 battle versus Coach Phantombass or Tyler and the NY Cosmogs. Coming into Week 2, we did pick up an unfortunate loss last week against Coach Innovate and the Louisville Lugias. I was blaming the crit at the time, but that was before me realizing that I could have won that game easily just by going Rayquaza there and killing his Stoutland instead of risking Blastoise then. Because even then I could have made a sack and then, get out Blastoise to threaten out the Hippowdon or just, weaken down the Marshadow. So I really had that game anyways near the end because I just needed chip on the Hippowdon in order for Rayquaza to kill it. There was really no excuse to that. I was like blaming the crit, but it was still an unfortunate loss because of stupidity. And that is why I am not live comming anymore. I'm realizing between a lot of chokes in Season 7 of APA Showdown and just the recent game that I'm not going to live comm because I feel like I talk too much when I live comm and I don't actually think out every situation like I do when I am just normally battling. I really would rather not pull a chalk and just, actually get the win that I should have received. Innovates was still played well, and he was a good sport because he was even trying to give me the win since he didn't Mega with Gyarados even after the game, but I stick to my word. So anyways, coming into Week 2, we are facing the most offensive team in the entire league, probably. Noah might be right behind him. But anyways, Tyler has a very scary team. He decided to go with a pretty low Uber pick in Magearna. Magearna was kind of interesting on his part, considering that Magearna cannot use Emus. But I will go ahead and pop up the rest of his roster. I feel like I'm going to do it like this, just because we have the sprites page, and it just looks so nice that I might as well use it. This roster consists of Magearna, Salamence, Mamoswine, Manaphy, Mega Gallade, Mismagius, Licky, Volcarona, Aerodactyl, Shuckle, and Lileep. Now, his team is very, very offensive. His only real bulk lies in Licky, Shuckle, and Lileep, technically. He could easily run, like a defensive Salamence, Assault Vest Magearna, or I want to technically say, or like a bulky Rest, Hydration, Manaphy, and Rain. That's just about it that he could run for bulk. Maybe a somewhat bulky Arrow, but Arrow's kind of frail still. So he priced heavy offense, and it really just works for him. His offense is overwhelming in the team build. I actually prepped for, I did a mock for the coach he faced last week for Willem, and I destroyed with his team. I actually love all this offense. It's kind of, what I normally draft, and but he did it excessively. Like, this is purely hyper offense. Like, Licky is just about his only wall. Shuckle's just there for webs, really. Hazard lead. But as for the overall team, his two Z users being Salamence and Volcarona, so he has very scary setup sweepers for sure. I want to be able to counter that, but his speed tiers is what the scariest thing is. Salamence, Manaphy, Mega Gallade, Mismagius, Volcarona, Aerodactyl. All can have Ice type coverage or some sort of super effective coverage in order to hit Rayquaza as they outspeed it. Mamoswine does not outspeed Rayquaza, but it will destroy it with an Ice Shard. Magearna, not going to outspeed, but if it does get a Shift Gear up, blows it back with the Flare Cannon. So I was really wondering how to use Rayquaza this game. And I thought about it. Since he's going to be so heavily focused on speed, I am going to counter him with Trick Room by bringing a Brave Rayquaza with a Trick Room Reuniclus. So as for the team build went, it consisted of a Rayquaza. It was minus speed, no speed IVs, Brave Nature. It had V-Create, Dragon Ascent, Dragon Claw, Extreme Speed. I brought V-Create for the Magearna just because I felt like there was a chance he was going to be Shucka for Dugtrio. Magearna was definitely going to be some sort of item in order to counter Dugtrio as well as my Magneton, whether it be counter both of them with Shed Shell or purely just the Dugtrio, considering Magneton didn't have that great of a matchup. Magearna was either going to be Shed Shell, Shucka, or Scarf in order to counter Dugtrio, most likely. So for Rayquaza, that's why I decided to bring the V-Crate. Dragon Ascent, of course, because it's Rayquaza's just strongest move. I did have to bring Dragon Claw, though, just for the roll on Salamence after rocks, in case he wasn't Intimidate Mints. And then for the Extreme Speed, I just need some sort of priority just in case late game, if I really needed it. So Rayquaza was actually going to do a decent amount of work behind Trick Room. The only thing that could really counter it would be Licky Licky. I wasn't really expecting the Shuckle or the Lileep necessarily, and even if Shuckle did come, it wasn't going to touch Rayquaza at all, and it could get off damage. But Licky Licky was probably going to have the Ice Beam, so. And as for the rest of his team, I get E-Speed off damage against everything except the Mismagius, of course. And then next up we have a defensive Reuniclus with enough Spadef to live a +3 Surf from an offensive Manaphy. Reuniclus had Trick Room, Recover, Psyshock, and Focus Blast. Really hoping to land the Focus Blast this game, and the Psyshock just helps me a little bit overall, in case I need to land it. Psychic might have been a little bit better, but Psyshock really just helped me versus Mismagius, as well as a just in case Volcarona is doing Quiver Dance shenanigans, or if it's a Spadef Licky Licky, even though Focus Blast would still do more in the end. So just the reasoning behind Psyshock over Psychic. Reuniclus was there just to set up the Trick Room, of course, and hopefully I get pivoted out. And the perfect way for me to get in Rayquaza without it taking unnecessary damage to abuse the most turns of Trick Room I can. I had my Klefki. This was a mixed defensive Klefki with Eject button. It had Eject button with Recycle, Switcheroo, Play Rough, and Spikes. He had no hazard removal, and I was hoping to capitalize on Spikes. He did have immunities in Salamence, Aerodactyl, and Mismagius, but Spikes were still going to be helpful for a lot of the threats like Magearna and Mamoswine and the Mega Gallade. For the Switcheroo, the main reason behind that was because if I recycled my Eject button or just haven't used it yet, and Mence or Volcarona are like setting up or something of the sort, Infernape is gone, or I can't really bring it in at the moment, I can switch my item with them, and then that gives them the Eject button, and unless they have the Z, of course, which was another possibility. This also worked for Magearna in case it was Shift Gear. I give them the Eject button, and then Klefki goes down, but then I just have to go into Rayquaza and get off an E-Speed that forces them to switch out, and then I have another chance of stopping possible setup from another chance. So it was that over Thunder Wave, which basically crippled me, because if I T-Waved the opponent in Trick Room, that just wouldn't help me. Play Rough, of course, just for damage, and Recycle was so I could get the Eject button as much as possible, so I could try and get Ray in as much as I can. Next up was another Blastoise, pretty similar to last week, unfortunately, as well as my Infernape. Defensive Blastoise, it had Scald, Ice Beam, Roar, Rapid Spin. It was defensive. I just had to basically live a few hits from Mensch and be able to take on the Mamo, otherwise Mamo is just going to break through my team. Defensive Reuniclus can take it on decently, but not as well as Mega Blastoise, so. Was really hoping for Blastoise to stick around and get rid of any possible rocks so I could bring in Rayquaza as much as possible, and as well as for the last one, you see at the end of the team I wanted to keep Golem's Sturdy alive. Next up we have Infernape. This was Choice Scarf. I hate it, I had to bring it 2 weeks in a row, but the fact is, Volcarona gets the +1, Salamence gets the +1, I need to have the counter. It's that simple. So we have Infernape with U-Turn, Flare Blitz, Close Combat, Stone Edge. Doing a lot of damage versus team, actually, and was going to be very important in this matchup, especially if he didn't have Mismatch, so I could spam Close Combat a decent amount of times, because that puts a lot of damage on Salamence, which if he's not bulky is very helpful. And then lastly I have Golem. I wanted to bring Golem since I looked at the matchup. If Mamoswine is gone, and you know there's no Stealth Rocks on my side of the field, I can keep my Sturdy. And I got rid of his Scarfer, or if he didn't have a Scarfer at all, Golem actually swept his team. The only thing, because it was Rock Polish Weakness Policy with Earthquake, Stone Edge, and Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch would have helped me in case it was Scarf Mence after Stealth Rocks if he was Moxie, but Golem, once it got the Weakness Policy boost from like any hits, because Rock, Ground, you know, a lot of super effective coverage can hit it. I got the Weakness Policy, it could actually destroy his team. The only thing that lived a +2 Earthquake or Stone Edge was a Licky Licky, which unfortunately came. But other than that, Golem actually one-shotted everything at that point, which was kind of ridiculous, and there was no way I couldn't bring it after seeing that, because the possibility of a Golem sweeping like that would be really cool. So anyways, as we were starting off this match, I was really surprised to see the Licky Licky as well as the Mismagius. As for what I otherwise expected him to bring, not so sure. I felt like Webs could have been a possibility for him to stop my Scarf and Fernape, which was definitely a possibility, as well as Dugtrio being an annoyance to trapping things. Mismagius I kind of saw as a possibility. It counters a Swords Dance Rayquaza with SD, especially if it has the Hidden Power Ice behind it, to blow me back and make sure I can't sweep with just being SD. It also counters Infernape by spamming Close Combat versus Team, even though he does have Gallade as well as Salamence. But as we were kicking off this game, I wanted to leave my Mega Blastoise. It countered his Rock Slide and Mammo, so I could Rapid Spin in case he decided to stay in on a Scald, which definitely wouldn't be the best idea, because I would have no reason to click Scald turn 1. Ice Beam on Mence. If he leads Magearna, I could easily swap out into Klefki and go ahead and use the eject button and get momentum, because he would probably Volt Switch on Mega Blastoise. If he does go into Mismagius, I just don't see it as a lead. It would be a problem though. Mega Gallade, I can take it on, I can get off a Scald, hopefully get the burn. Licky Licky, that's not normally a lead, it's just always a switch in for a few certain Pokemon. So as we started off the battle here, I did lead my Blastoise and he led his Mega Gallade, so we both Mega. I'm clicking Scald 1,000,000% as he Swords Dance turns 1, which is very scary. And my Scald does not do that much. He goes for the Close Combat. I had to stay in, unfortunately. I didn't know what else to do here. Was really hoping to get the burn so I could kill afterwards, but unfortunately I do lose my Mega Blastoise. But Mega Blastoise was dying to rocks anyways, so at this point Stealth Rocks get on my field. They are staying. As I go for U-turn here on the incoming Mence, I'm going to go right into Reuniclus and go ahead and set up my Trick Room. I'm going to hit Focus Blast, see what this Licky Licky can do. As he goes for the knockoff, gets rid of my Colbur Berry, which is perfectly fine, because more than likely Gallade isn't going to be doing that much for the rest of this match. And I really do hate Licky Licky. It is the devil of all Pokemon. I want the Psyshock in case he went back into the Gallade to get at that wish, because one, Focus Blast would kill probably, but I do risk missing it as well. But he opts to just go for this and whatnot, so as Trick Room runs out, I'm just going to click Recover as he goes right back into Mence. This thing is going to do nothing to me, and I'm going to set up Trick Room, and I will go right into Klefki here. Assuming he is Scarf, it gives me a great pivot to go out into my Rayquaza, because he has no reason to stay in. And this Licky Licky does show to have Ice Beam. I want to go ahead and get off damage, hoping it wasn't going to have it, because I could two-shot with Dragon Ascent from where he was at. Not only did I get a low roll unless he had some more defense investment than I thought, it just didn't work as I hoped. I want to scout if he was, not scout, but I just wanted to see what he was going to do here. Get in Reun, set up the Trick Room again. But he goes into Mag. As I go for Trick Room on his switch in, I was really hoping to heal with Focus Blast here, so no rocks. But unfortunately, it does live. Then Life Orb Mammo gets that back up. I'm going to pivot out my Reuniclus here as I go into Klefki, eat up the Flare Cannon, and this allows me to go my eject button right into my Rayquaza. Right here, I was... he goes into Salamence. I was debating for the longest time to click Dragon Claw. Lately in my games, I have been not trusting my gut, and I regret it so much. Because this happens 2 turns in a row where I don't trust my gut. Because I go for V-Create. It's like, of course Magearna's going to switch in. Why else would a Rayquaza go in on a Magearna if it didn't have something to one-shot it? Then he goes into Mismagius when I go into Reuniclus. Reuniclus was the obvious play, as some irrelevant person in the chat said play like a fiddle. So I knew he was going to make the mismatch double, so I was really close to clicking an attack with Rayquaza or going into Infernape. Of course, Infernape can't pick up the kill versus Mismagius anyway, so it probably wasn't worth the double. But either way, anything would have been better than this situation. Luckily, I go for Psyshock knowing he would go for Nasty Plot, because it would put me in a really bad situation. But now I can just sack Golem, which I don't really want to do, but I have to. And this allows me to get a free switch into Infernape, which is just a free Flare Blitz. And this just allows him to go into his Ments to try and pick up the revenge kill, as I'm just going to go right into my Reuniclus. I already know I wall this thing, there's no reason. And right here, this is where we see that he is not Scarf, which is very important. But Roost does make it very annoying. And he does show to be a fly set, which is pretty interesting. Not exactly sure why he brought it 100%. I was just, yeah, never mind. he just had to bring a Supersonic Sky Strike. So as I would go into Reuniclus here, knowing he doesn't have a Z move, he can't really do anything to me. I get a 37% roll here with my Psyshock. I'm like, okay, that's a good amount of damage. Because I'm assuming he's just like still an offensive Ments with Roost, Supersonic Sky Strike, Dragon Claw, and Dragon Dance. I'm assuming he's a setup Ments. It was really effective versus my team. Of course, any Ments can be, but he is Intimidate, so I thought it wasn't going to be a complete possibility. So he goes in Magearna here. I'm just going to click Focus Blast. There's no reason not to, because nothing can really come in and screw me over after. And he goes into Licky Licky here. So if I get off this Focus Blast, which I do, Licky Licky dies, which is beautiful. Not to mention, I forgot to say, I did get a Spike Up with Klefki at one point, so the Mega Glade dies on switching, which is very important. I'm going to click Psyshock here, and we do get another 37.2 on this Settlements. So I am just assuming that this is a offensive Ments based off these rolls, with just a little bit of HP, since my min damage is around 37 or 38 for this Reuniclus. As we pick up at 37.8 here on the Psyshock, I am going to click Recover. No reason to attack again, because I knowing he's just going to sack a Lade here. There's no reason for him to do that. And right here, 1,000,000%, because I did not know his investment on Salamence, in Trick Room, Reuniclus just wins here. It just wins. Because that Salamence has to get off a Roost in order to be able to even somewhat deal with my Reuniclus. He has to get off a Roost and properly fly stall me. So I go into Infernape here, assuming, no, not even assuming, because his best play is to Volt Switch here. 1,000,000% to Volt Switch. Because that allows him to get in his Ments at the end of Trick Room, and if the Reuniclus stayed in versus that, the Ments freely got off a Roost while I had to reset Trick Room. That was the reason for me going for Infernape here, because if in that case happened, even after -1, my Infernape will knock it out with Stone Edge. And very rarely, I mean, it would be clever of him, but very rarely would he go into Magearna on an Infernape. So that is my reason behind making this play here. But he opts to go for Fleur Cannon. I see why it was an option, but at the same time, I do not agree with it at all. But as I have my Reuniclus here, I'm just going to reset Trick Room. He goes in Immense. I'm like, okay, I've been getting the low rolls, and then I get a crit with my Psyshock here. Now, he tells me at this point that it is a very bulky Ments. He had a decent amount of HP investment and 130 in defense. So, in fact, I've been actually getting just about the highest rolls for Psyshock the entire game. So ideally, that is the that crit did matter for the game. That is the only reason I won. But in my opinion, he still shouldn't have Flurred Cannon. He risked a crit on his Ments by not making that Volt Switch play and trying to get a Roost off. That could have saved his Ments possibly. Of course, that put me like in the proper Infernape position, but he wouldn't have risked that if he just played his Ments better. He could have easily as fly stalled my Reuniclus of Trick Rooms and my Recovers and my Psyshocks the entire game, because I didn't have much PP on this Reuniclus. Between Trick Room, Recover has 16, Focus Blast only has 8, and then Psyshock only has 16 or so, right? Something like that. And Psyshock is what I need to spam versus Ments. So his Salamence could actually have easily just walled out the rest of my team 1,000,000%, but he played it way too impatiently, and that costed his Ments to get crit. He would have never risked that crit if he's just kept his Ments healthy and fly stalled me. It would have been safe for the rest of the game. So some people were arguing, oh, do a replay right now. He risked his Ments. There was no reason for that. And at this point, I'm just going to click Focus Blast and hope to get Rayquaza in on a Trick Room. He does freeze me, but luckily I do get out immediately. That freeze could actually really have screwed me over. Like, not even gonna lie. But at this point, I just need to get up Trick Room, click Focus Blast until I die, just to make sure Ray comes in on a Trick Room turn. But at this point, I do land the last 2 Focus Blasts. as Magearna will go down. So we do pick up the win for week 2. Once again, unfortunate crit for Tyler, but he did unnecessarily risk that by keeping his Salamence at a low health. He could have easily just kept Salamence bulky versus my Reuniclus and just stalled me out. But another, I think Rayquaza got a kill last week, but still, unfortunately, nothing this week for Rayquaza. Didn't pick up any kills. Reuniclus did pick up 4. Technically only 3, since Mamo did go down to its own Life Orb, which kind of sucks. Could have picked up that kill. But 4 kills for Reuniclus, and then Klefki picked 1 up for the Spike, and Fernip picked up Miss Magius, so not too bad. So we are 1-1 now. Rocking a... I'm trying to think of that Stalin died. No, the Stalin died. So we're rocking a 1-1 -1. Not that good, but at this point, in my opinion, we could have been 2-0. So I definitely need to capitalize on my mistakes. No offense to Tyler, but he could have definitely won this game 1,000,000%. So it's something for both of us to look back on our previous week battles and stuff like that. So as for next week, I am not sure exactly who we take on, but hopefully Rayquaza can actually do work, because I'm really tired of it not being able to. But that matchup was just horrifying with that hyper offense. So hopefully next week we can have the battle swing much more our way, because I felt behind almost this entire battle, which was really unfortunate. So anyways, that'll be it for me this week. Make sure to sub, like, share, deuces.